Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Freedom Radio Hour. I'm your host, DJ Adam Cruz, and I'm here with my fantastic co-host right here,
Eddie Nicholas. What up, beautiful people, and welcome to 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, and DWildMusicRadio.com up in the house.
Exactly.
What up?
Well, first we got to take a moment to let our listeners and our viewers know that the Freedom Radio Hour is here, not only giving you fantastic music, but we're here to be your number one source for music, business, news, and trends from around the globe. Right out of the gate, we have to talk about the fact that 2018 has been jumping off like rockets. Let's talk about the fact that you have finally, I'm sure you'll be pleased about this, a concerted effort from several industry leaders, record executives, artists, and the like, have come together to implore that Congress consider a better way to handle these royalties, finally. So, Congress responded by filing two different sets of bills that they hope will be passed. So far, it has gotten the support of all of the industry bigwigs. I'm talking the National Songwriters Association, ASCAP, BMI, the Recording Academy, all of them. The list goes on, that they're all behind these efforts. The first bill that's been filed recently was called the Music Modernization Act.
Okay.
And the second bill is called the Classics Act.
Okay.
So what the Music Modernization Act is basically kind of what says it in the act. They want Congress to look at all of the language around royalties and the language around what's downloaded, stream, all that kind of stuff, to just really modernize all that
going
language.
through technology.
This is like season one of the things that we were talking about, but you see that because of the change in administration and the agendas that they push, it really pushes and creates a backlog of these kinds of issues. While they're important, they're obviously not important enough that in season one of our show, we were discussing the same thing that's finally starting to come to pass several seasons later because they work so slowly. So the Music Modernization Act has been filed to help modernize a lot of the language around.
So in other words, we use the word since they're using streamline.
Yes, but this helps us because now the language is there to refer to when you do contracts and agreements and refer back to where your money is. Now you have this Music Modernization Act that will be a reinforcement to your argument. That's what this all means in the end, right?
So with this act, is it more of an accountability?
It's more of an accountability. But the other thing I want to talk about is this other act called the Classics Act. You see, up until now, there is an issue around records that are recorded before 1972. They, for some reason, are not given the same royalty amount as the others. All that to say that streaming outfits, when they came to pass, didn't pay any royalties to the records that were done prior to 1972 because of the Copyright Millennium Act that took effect. So, the problem with that now is that now these companies like Spotify and others are going public, and they're doing it off the backs of the musicians. But this music that predates 1972, they haven't paid a stitch of royalties on. Meanwhile, they're making hands over fists now because now they're publicly traded.
Now, in reference to that, can you give some people a little bit of background on what you mean prior to?
Okay, so the Copyright Act says that prior to 1972, there isn't a set royalty rate that's established for those recordings because they're old. So streaming outfits take advantage of the fact that the language is loose around this. So they don't pay for these older records. But labels and such have now begun to fight back because they're saying,
to get back.
You're now publicly traded, you're making money hand over fist. You need to pay the royalties for all of the music that you're exploiting, right? Regardless of whether it's done prior to 1972 or not. So the Classics Act addresses that.
And again, with the Classics Act, just for clarity,
sure,
what is the the understanding of music that falls in public domain within that era. Because again, that we know that there are certain songs that fall in public domain. Of course, the songs that you're talking about in the classic acts do not. But could there be some type of misunderstanding with that being when we refer to the word of classic?
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. So what Eddie is referring to is public domains. That's songs that you can sing right now, record them without having to get permission nor pay a royalty to that copyright owner or their descendant, right? So these are public domain songs. An example of that is Happy Birthday. Now we know it used to be contentious, meaning it used to be copyright protected and you had to get permission to even utter those words in a recording. But now it's considered public domain. So that's what Eddie's referring to. What you were saying also, what we're talking about is not records that are in the public domain. They're simply records that are copyright protected but were recorded prior to 1972. There's a quagmire around that, but now in 2018 they're looking to finally squash that and address these issues because it makes no sense that older records don't garner the same royalties as our newer records.
I can see Motown raising all kinds of heck because they are still rocking Motown records.
You have to realize a record that's not in the public domain was the copyright was re-protected, renewed, if you will. So those won't fall under public domain. So the Motown records, they're always going to be protected by copyright. They're not public domain like a Happy Birthday song. Let's take a break. When we come back, let's break down more about what these acts mean. I wanted to go back more to the Music Modernization Act. Let's take a break right here on the Freedom Radio Hour.
91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. WildMusicRadio.com.
Come back with us. Mixtape Sessions is proud to present singer, songwriter, actor, and Mixtape Sessions recording artist Jacqueline Graham. Produced by DJ and label head Adam Cruz, the Jacqueline plea includes Inside My Head and You Showed Me Your Love. Check out Jacqueline Graham and the Jacqueline EP, available to stream everywhere now. Mixtape Sessions, music for the people.
Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
What up, beautiful people, and welcome back to 91.6 FM. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Eddie Nicholas, and I'm sitting here with my fantastic and most knowledgeable co-host, the one and only Mr.
Adam Cruz. Thank you for tuning in and joining us again for the Freedom Radio Hour. We want to just let you know the latest and what's going on with music business news. Before we were breaking down two major bills that the U.S. Congress has filed recently with the support of most of our industry leaders, songwriters associations, etc. And that so far is this Music Modernization Act and the Classics Act. What we're talking about first and foremost again is digital mechanical royalties. Digital mechanical royalties. That's when you stream or download something off the internet. So internet and satellite radios have to pay attention to this because this affects internet and satellite radio, okay? So Music Modernization Act says, let's review all of the language here and modernize the language. So we got to incorporate the terms, streaming and downloading and what that all means. But also, streaming outfits don't want to be sued for illegally using songs. So the Music Modernization Act removes that liability for streaming outfits. Why? Because it modernizes the language and it creates a blanket approach to this money that has to be paid out. So they're no longer going to have to be sued because it's already going to be dealt with. Like, for example, you don't see lawsuits for outfits playing stuff on the terrestrial radio because there's a blanket license that protects that. Same thing that they're trying to do here. Music Modernization Act. Also, another subset of this is the AMP Act, which is incorporating producers and engineers into the digital royalty system.
Your sound people that make your records and everything sound
beautiful.
Wonderful.
Yeah, they too have argued and have won that they should have a share in the digital
because
mechanical
they're part of the
royalties. Correct. They don't want the big money like the rest of the songwriter co-producers and all that, but they want their share. So the Music Modernization Act, along with the AMP Act, helps to modernize the language and to help make a better situation for songwriters, producers, and the like. And in turn of doing all that, it adds a layer of transparency that you and I love to hear about, because our biggest complaint, I think, is that there's a lack of transparency in the game, you know? But this Classics Act really spells to, again, the digital mechanical royalties on records that were recorded prior to 1972. There's a bit of a misunderstanding that records before 1972, nobody pays anything for, period. No, we're only talking about internet and satellite radio. Anytime those songs, those older songs, are played within those realms, up until now, there hasn't been a payout system for that royalty, right? So they're saying, wait a minute, why not? So if you notice, an example is like on a Sirius satellite radio, there's stations upon stations that have like 50s, 60s, and 70s, the best of. That because they do that because all that loop and cycle of all those songs, they don't have to pay a digital mechanical royalty for it.
Now that would also be the same with like Pandora. You know, when you go to Pandora, they have
satellite radio.
You have that little Motown set.
Yes, but they're a different rate because they're considered up until now to be non-interactive streaming. That means you can't select the actual song, Eddie Nicholas, Was That All It Was, and hear that one. You have to hear stuff that sounds like you.
Okay.
And you might get you in the mix, you know, if you're available on there. So it's a very interesting time. This Classic Sax deals with that pre-1972, and then this Music Modernization Act, I think, is going to be a good sign for us. However, I wouldn't underestimate the pushback. You have to see that this bill is considered copyright reform, which tends to bring a lot of controversy in politics, at least in the States. And also those that are behind this are Republican congressmen. And right now the Republican Party is a bit on a they're sort of what do you call this? The person that's in the circus? A slippery
slope.
Yes. So
a tightrope.
They're on a tightrope, yes. And so it's a very precarious position to be in when you're the party that is the ruling party and you're trying to push these agendas through, yet the pendulum always swings back. And our midterm elections are coming up this year. So we'll have to see what happens.
You know, the question goes with net neutrality and all of this type of stuff, all falling under this administration.
Yeah, because we haven't heard nor seen the end of the fights around the repeal of net neutrality norms, because, like I'm saying, the pendulum swings the other way, and then we'll have another debate that will, in effect, switch and shift the positions there, you know?
And I always say with the positions, always watch where the funding is. Because when you find that where the funding is, that's where most of the time the chance that the pendulum is going to swing.
Because that's been one of the biggest arguments in politics, and it definitely speaks to how the music business game works when it's too much of an oligarchy. Too few have the most power. And in the music business, when you have that same approach, you have less choice, and also any sudden switch means that your catalog, your music, your creations could be devalued in an instant, depending on some arbitrary decision made by a streaming outfit or a record label. That's our biggest
issue. Most importantly, people's personal tastes.
Yes, exactly.
You know, people's personal taste has a lot to do with what gets played, what does not get played, and what gets through and what does not.
And I think that's a great point, because that speaks to why it took so long for the digital mechanical royalty system to be applied to songs before 1972. That seems like a no-brainer, but depends on who the powers that be or those that are pushing that agenda or not.
At the table, exactly, at the agenda.
Let's take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about Spotify and a $1.6 billion lawsuit that has been filed against them.
Does Spotify have that much money?
We're going to find out.
We're going to find out. 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, GYMusicRadio.com.
Singer, songwriter, performer, and host Eddie Nicholas debuts his fantastic new album. Released in conjunction with mixtape sessions and Deck Music Imprint, Eddie brings you a 16-track album full of fantastic jams upon jams, perfect for any dance floor. The album includes records like Fall in Love, Goomba, and Reuben. Check out EddieNicholas.com and TrackSource for his brand new LP.
Freedom Radio Hour.
And we're back live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, and on the web at dwobmusicradio.com. You're deep in the zone right here on the Freedom Radio Hour. We're your number one source for music business news and trends from around the globe. I'm sitting here with my fantastic co-host,
Eddie Nicholas. What up, beautiful people, and welcome back to 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan.
My man, are you ready to gag?
Well, you better gag me.
Okay, so this new year has brought a lot of information that just has the music business aflutter. In particular, it's Spotify. You know, in prior episodes, we've been talking about Spotify's plans to go public. That means they will be a publicly owned and traded company. You could buy shares to own in Spotify, and you could watch its progression. Usually, this is a fundraising exercise for Spotify. They're looking to drum up a bunch of cash to do several different things, including expansion, and usually IPOs means jobs. In Spotify's case, they have been all year sort of inching up their value. According to their CEO, they have drummed up enough capital to, now that they're in 2018, the latest reports has valued Spotify at a whopping $8.4 billion.
And what stratosphere and in what hemisphere? Where are these companies popping up from out of nowhere to be worth billions of dollars?
Well, as it turns out, there's the way the math works, I understand. I'm no expert, but from what I understand, the way the math works is not only its value at IPO, but it's trending, so it's potential to earn more and more.
Okay.
So the total
IPO.
Value.
Explain to folks
what IPO is initial public offering. That's basically the moment where Spotify changes from a private entity to a publicly traded.
So
company.
right now, privately, they're worth billions of dollars.
Well, now they're preparing to become an IPO. They should be happening soon enough. And so they're saying we're at $8.4 billion. They're saying at IPO they might be worth as high as $20 billion. Remember, we said we have to be careful with these numbers because they're providing an inflated sense of the value of Spotify because it accounts for the trends in the market. You see, streaming is where it's at. So venture capitalists, investors, economists alike all look at the trends for making money, not just what you're earning and what you're worth now, Spotify, but what you could make. And they add that to what your value is. You see? Because they're saying what you're going to be worth. They're saying in no time flat. They're forecasting. They're saying in no time flat, Spotify could be worth as high as $100 billion because of what it's intending to do. You see, Spotify's not just trying to be the biggest streaming juggernaut on the planet. They're also trying to be like a Netflix, where they offer
YouTube.
video and YouTube, all of it in one. You see? That's where it's at. And we talk about this because we forget, as this news breaks out, that our three biggest labels, Sony, Warner, and UMG, Universal Music Group, all own stakes in Spotify. Remember, we covered before that in order to get payments for having their music available on Spotify, Spotify gave them $3 million in ads and also gave them percentages of ownership of the company. Now that they're public, our three biggest labels have now just gotten a whopping load of cash because they already own shares in Spotify. Where did the money get trickled down to the artist? That's my only question. How much of that gets trickled down to the artist? How much of that is royalty-bearing income for us? And
not only that, where's this money sitting in cyberspace? Because it just befoggles me when you're talking about billions of dollars. Where is this money sitting at? And what are these companies actually doing with this money? Again, you're talking about the artists. If these companies like Spotify are making billions and billions of dollars, why are artists still only getting pennies on the dollar?
And the other thing too is that whenever there's an IPO, there was a usual tradition or trend that said the more IPOs that there are in the United States, the more jobs you'll see in Main Street America. Well, companies like Nike, one of our biggest athletic footwear companies in the world, has proven that you don't need to have a lot of sort of foots on the ground. You could operate more liquid. In other words, you don't need to have stores all over the place. Just have a few, and you could make more than ever before. In other words, the job creation that they pitch may not be in fact true, just like those numbers.
Unless they're jobs that have people sitting behind a computer taking orders. don't, you know, that in
But
itself is a job creation.
my thing is like, since you may be able to claim Spotify that you're more liquid, therefore you're not going to create the jobs you thought you were. I want more royalty-bearing income to come pass through those labels and all of those three labels that we just talked about. I want more money to be filtered down to them because we know the coffers are going to get the lion's share. Just like in politics, the top 1% get the lion's share. The biggest gains you'll see will be from venture capitalists and investors who invested in Spotify before this exercise of them becoming public. Now they walk away with a cool billion or whatever it is because of their effort. So we have to be careful. Why are we talking about this on the Freedom Radio Hour? Because this has everything to do with the consolidation of power that we see in our music industry. You see, if your music is available on these streaming outfits, and you know, lo and behold, out of no time, Spotify eats away at Apple and Tidal, and now it only becomes one streaming outfit. And what kind of power do you think that streaming outfit has to okay or not the music that you have there, or say we'll pay you not only a fraction of a penny for stream, but a fraction thereof
of a penny.
Because it's some arbitrary decision. It's not something that say Congress steps in and says, oh, wait a minute, you guys, we're going to have a blanket amount here. This is why we have to be careful. That's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Freedom Radio Hour. Make it your business to visit EddieNicholas.com. He has a brand new Do You Want to Dance LP. Came out. I'm so excited. And the album is amazing. I'm so proud of you.
I am too. And also just be mindful. Make sure that you always have a seat at the table.
Yes.
If you don't, find one.
Yes, exactly. Also, make it your business to check out my website at djadamcruz.com for more of my fantastic music. And leave a comment under everything we're posting at Freedom Radio Hour. We'd love to hear from you. And download our free app. That's right. Search us out for Android and iTunes users at the App Store and within Google Play. Freedom Radio Hour for free. You get all the episodes, our podcasts, and more at your fingertips.
91.6 FM, y'all. This man does it all. Peace and love.
Peace and love. Have a good weekend and a good week ahead. Peace.